We'll call to order the Subcommittee on Communications and Technology. The Chair recognizes himself for an opening statement. Reforming FCC process is an issue that this subcommittee is no stranger to. And over the past 2.5 years, we've held multiple hearings, marked up 2 bills last Congress, passed both of them to the House floor with bipartisan support. And throughout this process, I think that it's been well established where my colleagues in the minority and I disagree on some specific language of the bill. However, we do agree that all government agencies should have a transparent, predictable, and consistent process that ensures the agency is productive in carrying out its responsibilities. 2 weeks ago, the subcommittee met for a legislative hearing on these 2 bills, and I'm proud to say that there was little to no disagreement on the need for and language in the Consolidated reporting bill. Reducing the burden on the FCC by eliminating outdated reports and consolidating its remaining reporting obligations is the kind of common sense legislation that helps make our government smaller and more nimble in the information economy. So I look forward to moving this bill expeditiously with bipartisan support. At the same hearing, however, some of the witnesses and some of my colleagues expressed concerns with certain aspects of the process reform bill. The version that we're considering today incorporates a number of changes that were suggested in that hearing. This kind of productive bipartisan debate has been a hallmark of this subcommittee. It's produced successful collaborative legislation in the past. To that end, in lieu of lengthy debate on a number of amendments, yesterday Ranking Members Waxman and Eshoo agreed to vote this bill out of subcommittee and continue working together to try and find a legislative solution that achieves our shared goal. Make no mistake, I still stand behind the language in the bill. I believe it would produce a more productive and predictable FCC that could serve as a model for administrative agencies throughout the federal government. But despite our differences, I'm not ready to throw in the towel on a bipartisan approach. I've instructed my staff to work over the August recess with their counterparts in Mr. Waxman and Ms. Eshoo's offices to see if we can't find some sort of common ground and agreement. I thank the ranking members for their willingness to continue these important discussions. I would yield to the Vice Chair of the committee, Mr. Latta.
I thank the Chairman for yielding. And, Mr. Chairman, again, thank you very much for holding this markup today on the FCC Process Reform Act and the FCC Consolidated Reporting Act. I commend the Chairman for previously holding hearings to examine FCC processes. We have all learned a great deal from the wide array of witnesses. I believe that the bills before us today are common sense reform measures that will bring transparency and accountability to the FCC. Furthermore, the proposed changes to the FCC will bring regulatory certainty to the telecommunications marketplace that can lead to investment, innovation, and job creation. The cost of regulation to American businesses and hence to our economy is too great to ignore. With the telecommunications industry driving a significant portion of the economic growth in our country during the recent economic downturn, as members of Congress, we should make sure that the FCC does not promulgate regulations that hamper this sector of the economy, especially if they are made behind closed doors without publication in the Federal Register or for lawmakers, industry, and consumers to review. Several weeks ago, I introduced H.R. 2649, the FCC Analysis of Benefits and Costs Act of 2013, which required the FCC to conduct a cost-benefits analysis at the time of a proposed rule and again at the time of the final rule. I thank the Chairman for including the cost-benefit analysis as a requirement for economically significant rules in Section 13A of the discussion draft. Every business and family, for that matter, must make tough decisions based on these calculations, and so should the agency that oversees the telecommunications in the United States. Mr. Chairman, with that, I yield back the balance of the time.
I appreciate that, and I wonder if Mr. Kinzinger wants to make any opening comments regarding the legislation.
Mr. Chairman, I'll, with the changes.
Okay. Anyone else on our side? If not, then I'll return the balance of time and now recognize my friend and colleague from California, Ms. Eshoo, for 5 minutes for her opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you. First of all, thank you for committing to work with the Democrats to address the substantive concerns raised in the subcommittee's July 11th hearing, improving the FCC process. Because we share a common goal of strengthening the FCC and modernizing it to increase openness, transparency, and accountability, I remain very hopeful that we can reach an agreement and do so without being overly prescriptive. I want to acknowledge and commend you on the latest revisions made to the FCC Process Reform Act. These improvements reflect the testimony of our expert witnesses and signal to me a willingness to find common ground on provisions that improve the overall operation of the FCC. I support the FCC Consolidated Reporting Act of 2013, which recognizes that there are opportunities to streamline many of the outdated reporting requirements Congress has placed on the FCC. At a time in which agency resources are limited, we should ensure that the FCC is maximizing its staff time. It isn't a surprise that I don't support provisions that would gut the FCC's ability to protect the public interest in media and telecom mergers, but there are other areas where I believe compromise is possible. For example, directing the FCC to complete a rulemaking that considers procedural changes to its rules is one way to maximize public participation and efficient decision-making without, again, being overly prescriptive. So, Mr. Chairman, with so many important issues before the Commission today, neither of us wants to see the FCC hamstrung by years of litigation. I want to thank you again for agreeing to work with us, to work with me and my staff to find agreement on the FCC Process Reform Act prior to markup at the full committee. And I'd also like, Mr. Chairman, for unanimous consent to place Mr. Waxman's opening comments into the record since
Without objection.
he can't be here this morning. And I'd also like to congratulate David being at the table for the first time in his new role. Bravo. With that, I'll yield back the balance of my time.
Okay, and I don't believe generally yields back the balance of her time. Anyone else on the Republican side seeking to make any statements this morning? Does the chairman wish to issue one? Okay. And on this side, Mr. Dingell, do you have any statements you want to issue this morning? Thank you. Appreciate that. Then I think we'll move on and to call up the committee print entitled the Federal Communications Commission Process Reform Act of 2013 and ask the clerk to report.
Discussion draft to amend the Communications Act of 1934 to provide for greater transparency and efficiency in the procedures followed by the Federal Communications Commission.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with. The bill will be open for amendment at any point. So ordered. Are there any bipartisan amendments to the bill? Are there any amendments to the bill? Any other amendments? If not, the question now occurs on favorably reporting the committee print to the full committee. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee print is favorably reported. The chair now calls up the committee print entitled the Federal Communications Commission Consolidated Reporting Act of 2013 and asks the clerk to report.
Discussion draft to amend the Communications Act of 1934 to consolidate the reporting obligations of the Federal Communications Commission in order to improve congressional oversight and reduce reporting burdens.
Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with. The bill will be open for amendment at any point. So ordered. Are there any bipartisan amendments to the bill? Are there any other amendments? The question now occurs on forwarding the committee print to the full committee. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the bill is agreed to. Without objection, the staff is authorized to make technical and conforming changes to the bills approved by the subcommittee today. So ordered. And without objection, the subcommittee now stands adjourned.